The person you trust with your soul holds the knife to your back, not from malice but from a nature you refuse to see. You believe your love is a fortress. I will show you it is a cage with the door left open for your enemies, and the key is in your own heart. We are taught from birth to seek a haven in the arms of another. The poets sing of it, the philosophers praise it, and the common man yearns for it. A connection so profound that all defenses may be lowered, all secrets shared, all vulnerabilities exposed without fear. This is the grand ideal of love, of deep friendship, of familial bonds. It is presented as the ultimate triumph of the human spirit, a sanctuary of warmth and absolute trust in a cold and treacherous world. In this idyllic vision, intimacy is achieved through a form of mutual surrender. You offer your weaknesses as a tribute, a testament to your faith in the other person's virtue. You hand them the map to your deepest fears, the keys to your ambitions, and the blueprint of your psychological architecture, believing this act of self-exposure will be met with eternal protection. This is the trap of emotional complacency. It is a noble idea, forged in the fires of hope, but it is an idea that will lead you to ruin. It is noble because it imagines men as they should be, loyal, constant, and grateful. It is ruinous because it fails to deal with men as they are. The average person walks through life governed by this ideal. They build their relationships on the assumption of unwavering fealty. They believe that the declaration of love or the bond of blood is an unbreakable contract, a sacred oath, and so they grow comfortable. They become predictable. Their reactions can be calculated, their emotional levers identified and catalogued. The person who loves you most knows best how to please you, and therefore they also know best how to wound you. They know which words will soothe you and which will drive you to madness. They know which sacrifices will indebt you to them and which pressures will cause you to break. You call this intimacy. A student of power calls it a catastrophic intelligence breach. In your quest for a perfect union, you have willingly disarmed yourself before a person who, like all humans, is subject to the shifting winds of fortune. You have laid your bare throat before someone who, when faced with a sufficient threat or a tempting opportunity, will be guided not by their memory of your love, but by the timeless, immutable instincts of fear and self-interest. You have built your castle on the sand of sentiment, mistaking its warmth for the permanence of stone. This is the path of the idealist, and it ends always in betrayal. Not necessarily because your loved one is evil, but because you were foolish enough to believe they were a god, an unwavering constant in a world of variables. You made yourself a victim of your own morality. But the prince, the true strategist, the ruler of his own state, does not build on sand. He builds with the granite and iron of reality. He understands that the world is a dangerous theater, not a sanctuary, and that even the most intimate chambers can become a battleground. To navigate this world, he employs a tool that the idealist mistakes for a flaw, a strategic and disciplined coldness. This coldness is not the absence of affection, it is the refusal to be governed by it. It is an instrument of clarity, a psychological distance that allows for objective assessment, even of those held most dear. Where you see a beloved partner, a trusted friend, or a loyal child, the prince sees them for what they are first, human. And to be human, as Machiavelli teaches, is to be a creature of profound unreliability. As he wrote, one must presuppose that all men are evil, and that they will always act according to the wickedness of their spirits whenever they have the chance. This is not pessimism, it is the foundational operating principle for survival. Men, he observed, are ungrateful, fickle, liars and deceivers, avoiders of danger, eager for gain. Let us dissect this brutal diagnosis, for it is the key to your protection. Ungrateful, they will forget the 1,000 sacrifices you made for them the moment you refuse a single request. Fickle, their loyalty will shift with their circumstances, their promises dissolving when a better offer appears. Liars and deceivers, they will tell you what you wish to hear to gain your trust, while their actions quietly serve their own agenda. Avoiders of danger, when crisis comes, they will abandon you to save themselves, for self-preservation is the most powerful human law. Eager for gain, they will betray a lifetime of affection for a moment of advantage. This is not a condemnation of a few bad men, but a clinical diagnosis of the species. It applies to strangers, to allies, and yes, even to those who share your table and your bed. To ignore this truth because of affection is not a sign of love, but a sign of terminal naivete. The ruler's primary duty is to his state, his power, his stability, his legacy. Emotional attachments are secondary to this prime directive. A loved one who becomes a liability to the state, through their own weakness, ambition, or foolishness, must be managed with the same dispassionate logic as any external threat. The prince understands that sentiment is the fog of war. Coldness is the clear vision that allows one to see the terrain for what it is. Think of a surgeon. A surgeon may feel compassion for the patient on his table, but the hand that holds the scalpel must be cold, steady, and precise. If his hand were to tremble with emotion, he would kill the very person he wishes to save. Your life, your power, your state is that patient. Your emotions are the tremor that threatens to sever a vital artery. The coldness Machiavelli advises is the surgeon's steady hand. It is the capacity to make the necessary cut, for loyalty is a fragile chain, easily broken by opportunity or adversity, and even the deepest affection can be a gateway to ruin. Comment the calculator overcomes the sentimental to unravel this truth, and subscribe for the next lessons on the maintenance of the state. Now that you have accepted the grim reality that the human heart is a territory of shifting allegiances, you must be armed. To merely acknowledge the danger is the philosophy of the victim. To prepare for it is the discipline of the ruler. The idealist comes to the battlefield of relationships, armed with hope and a shield of trust, which shatters on first impact. The prince, however, carries tools. They are not the warm instruments of poetry and song, but the cold, sharp implements of strategy, forged in the unforgiving furnace of human nature. These tools allow him to navigate the treacherous currents of intimacy without drowning in them. They are the instruments of a necessary and protective distance, and you must learn to wield them with the skill of a master. The first and most essential of these is the cultivation of a specific kind of fear. Machiavelli famously concluded that if a ruler cannot be both loved and feared, it is far safer to be feared. The common man misunderstands this principle, confusing fear with the brute terror inspired by a tyrant. A tyrant is hated, and hatred is a volatile, dangerous emotion that breeds conspiracy in the shadows. Hatred is a fire that, once lit, seeks only to consume you. This is not the tool of a strategist, it is the clumsy weapon of a fool. The fear Machiavelli speaks of is a different beast entirely. It is a form of profound, unshakable respect. It is the quiet, implicit understanding in the minds of others, especially those closest to you, that you are not to be trifled with. It is the certainty that your will is absolute, your judgment is final, and that sentiment will never cloud your enforcement of consequences. In the context of those you love, this means they must never mistake your affection for weakness. They must know, in their very bones, that there is a line they must not cross, for your love does not grant them immunity from your laws. How is this state of reverential fear achieved? Through a calculated and impenetrable coldness. When your loved ones act against the interests of your state, be it your family's stability, your financial security, or your personal authority, your response must be swift, decisive, and devoid of emotional hysterics. Where they expect a tearful argument, you must give them a calm, logical verdict. Where they anticipate a passionate debate, you must present an unchangeable decision. You must become a force of nature in their lives, consistent, powerful, and utterly indifferent to their emotional bargaining. They must learn that your affection is a privilege, not a tool they can use to manipulate you. This strategic detachment prevents the contempt that is inevitably bred by familiarity. When a person feels they can predict your every emotional reaction, when they know they can sway you with guilt or charm you with flattery, they no longer respect you. They see you as a resource to be managed, but when they see that your core is a citadel of reason they cannot breach, they begin to fear crossing you, not because you are cruel, but because you are implacable. Your love may be warm, but your throne must be cold. This foundation of respect is maintained by the masterful adoption of a dual nature, which Machiavelli described as the way of the lion and the fox. A ruler, he advised, must learn from both beasts. He must be a lion to frighten off the wolves, and a fox to recognize the traps. Within your intimate circle, the wolves are not invading armies, but the more insidious threats of manipulation, betrayal, and emotional sabotage. The traps are not hidden pits in the forest, but cleverly disguised appeals to your sentiment. To survive, you must embody both creatures. The lion is your capacity for overt, unhesitating force. It is the raw power you must be willing to display to maintain order. This is the part of you that enforces discipline, that delivers hard truths without apology, that is capable of cutting a destructive person out of your life, be it a profligate sibling or a disloyal partner, for the health of the collective. The lion does not roar in anger. That is the sign of an animal that has lost control. The lion acts with a terrifying stillness, a demonstration of power so absolute it requires no emotional display. Your coldness is the source of this strength. It allows you to make the hard choice, to be the benevolent executioner when the situation demands it, without being crippled by the anguish of the act. You do what must be done, not because you enjoy the cruelty, but because you understand its necessity. But strength alone is a clumsy instrument. A lion can be easily led into a snare. Therefore, you must also be the fox. The fox is the master of cunning, of perception, of seeing the hidden currents beneath the surface of things. In your personal relationships, this is the art of strategic coldness in its most refined form. It is the ability to listen to a declaration of love while analyzing its underlying motive. It is the wisdom to accept a gift while calculating the obligation it is designed to create. The fox is a creature of deep suspicion, not because it is paranoid, but because it is a realist. It understands that people rarely say what they truly mean, and that every interaction is a negotiation of power. Your emotional detachment is the lens that grants you this clarity. It allows you to observe the behavior of your loved ones as a scientist observes a subject, dispassionately, looking for patterns, inconsistencies, and tells. The fox recognizes emotional blackmail disguised as a plea for help. It identifies the subtle power play couched in a term of endearment. It sees the trap in the flattery. Without the cold, analytical mind of the fox, you are blind. You will be caught in snares laid for you by the very hands you hold, and you will call it love. These two natures, the fierce and the cunning, the lion and the fox, are powered by a single formidable engine, the mastery over fortune through the exercise of virtue. Fortune, to Machiavelli, was the chaotic, unpredictable force of circumstance, the raging river that threatens to overwhelm all human endeavors. Most people are passive subjects of fortune. They are tossed about by its currents, their lives dictated by luck and the whims of others. In the intimate sphere, fortune manifests as the emotional chaos of human relationships, the sudden storm of a partner's jealousy, the unexpected tide of a child's rebellion, the financial whirlpool created by a family member's incompetence. These are the tempests that wreck the states of common men. But the prince is no common man. He does not surrender to the river. He builds dams and redirects its flow. This act of imposing will upon circumstance is virtue. And in the domain of personal relationships, strategic coldness is the ultimate expression of this virtue. It is the internal fortress of reason that remains serene and untouched by the emotional storms raging at its gates. It is the unwavering audacity to act according to a long-term strategy, even when short-term emotional pressures from yourself and from others scream for you to change course. By maintaining this core of dispassionate logic, you cease to be a reactive victim of the emotional states of those you love. You become the architect of your own stability. You do not ride the waves of their passions. You command the tides. This is the essence of power, to transform yourself from a subject of fortune into its master. You have been given the tools of the lion and the fox. You understand the necessity of being feared and the imperative of mastering fortune. But possessing a sword and knowing how to wield it in the heat of battle are two entirely different states of being. The most perilous war you will ever fight is not against the treachery of others, but against the seditious uprising of your own heart. Before you can rule any external state, you must first achieve absolute sovereignty over your inner world. For within you lies an idealist, a sentimentalist, a creature that yearns for the very warmth and vulnerability you must now learn to master. This internal battle is the true crucible of the prince, and its victory is the forging of a mind that is as impenetrable as it is perceptive. This struggle is a silent, solitary one. It is fought not on a battlefield of mud and steel, but in the quiet chambers of your own consciousness, in the moments after a perceived slight from a loved one, in the face of a tearful plea, or during the temptation to share a secret hope that could be used as future leverage. Nature and society have programmed you to seek solace in communion, to find strength in vulnerability. To achieve the discipline required for rule, you must systematically deprogram yourself. You must learn to view your own emotions with the same dispassionate scrutiny you apply to others. Your feelings of affection, your pangs of guilt, your flashes of anger, these are not sacred truths to be obeyed. They are simply data points. They are internal variables that must be analyzed, understood, and then managed, but never ever allowed to dictate your strategy. This is an act of profound self-abnegation. You must sacrifice the simple, intoxicating comfort of emotional reaction for the arduous, isolating clarity of strategic action. Think of your mind as a fortress. The common man's fortress has its gates wide open. He allows the envoys of love, guilt, and pity to march in and out as they please, often letting them take command of the entire citadel. His decisions are made in the chaotic public square of his emotions. The prince, however, maintains a different architecture. His mind is a series of concentric walls. The outer courts may be filled with the warmth of apparent affection and generosity, but the inner sanctum, the throne room where decisions are made, is a cold, silent, and solitary place. Only one entity is permitted entry: dispassionate reason. The love you feel for your child, your spouse, your closest confidant may be genuine, but it must be made to wait in the vestibule. It is heard, it is acknowledged, but it does not get a vote. When you bring the chalice of pure reason to the table of the heart, you are performing the most difficult alchemy of power. You are learning to love a person while simultaneously calculating their potential as a threat or an asset. This is not a betrayal of love. It is the ultimate act of protecting the world you are responsible for. This internal discipline finds its external expression in the art of containment. You must become the master of the impassive facade. In the theater of power, your face is a mask, and your words are a carefully curated script. Every uncontrolled emotional display is a crack in your armor. A fit of rage reveals your triggers. A show of despair reveals your breaking points. A declaration of unguarded joy reveals what you hold most dear and therefore what can be most easily taken from you. Those closest to you are the most astute audience of this performance. They have studied you for years. They know your tells. Your task is to make yourself unreadable, to become a placid surface beneath which the currents of your true intentions run deep and silent. When they come to you with a crisis, an accusation, or a demand, you must meet their emotional storm with an unnatural calm. This non-reaction is not passive, it is an offensive maneuver. It unnerves your opponent. It robs their emotional display of its power, leaving them exposed and appearing hysterical while you remain the picture of composed authority. You create a space in which your logic can dominate their sentiment. By refusing to join them in their chaos, you force them to enter your world of order and reason. This mastery of containment builds, piece by piece, an invisible wall of respect. This is not a wall of alienation. It is a structure of meticulously defined boundaries, built not of stones, but of perceptions. It is forged from every instance where you chose principle over passion, every time you enforced a consequence without flinching, every moment you refused to be swayed by emotional coercion. This invisible fortress communicates a powerful message to those you love. I care for you, but my duties to the state, to our collective stability, to my mission are paramount. My affection for you is not a key that unlocks my will. This creates a crucial element of strategic uncertainty. When your loved ones know you are capable of making a hard decision, even if it pains them and you, they cease to test your limits. They begin to respect the boundaries you have set. This wall filters your interactions. It allows affection to pass through, but it blocks the insidious entry of manipulation. It establishes you as a sovereign entity, not a man whose heartstrings can be pulled to make him dance. They may love the man, but they must respect the monarch. This psychological distance ensures that even in the most intimate embrace, the crown remains firmly on your head. This is the lonely, necessary, and ultimately triumphant mindset of the ruler. A heart that may feel warmth, but a mind that operates in the cold, clear light of perpetual winter. You have absorbed the severe truth of human nature. You have been armed with the tools of strategic distance and schooled in the lonely discipline of the inner fortress. But knowledge without action is the meditation of a coward. The final, terrible, and liberating truth of this philosophy is that it must culminate in a decisive act. A moment must come when theory is made manifest in the flesh of the world. Now, before we consecrate this final, brutal wisdom, ensure you are subscribed, for the ultimate power is reserved for those who not only see the path, but have the courage to walk it to its conclusion. The moment of execution, the masterstroke, is not a product of passion. It is the cold, quiet culmination of all your observation and calculation. It is an act of virtue so pure that it appears to the uninitiated as an act of monstrous cruelty. This is the instant where you must apply the decisive cut. It may be the final, non-negotiable dismissal of a beloved but toxic family member whose chaos threatens to sink your entire ship of state. It could be the calm, irrevocable refusal to fund a venture for a friend or child, knowing that their failure is certain and that your resources must be preserved. It might be the imposition of a harsh but necessary consequence upon a spouse whose disloyalty has compromised your authority and security. This action is the physical embodiment of your strategic coldness. It is the point where potential energy becomes kinetic. It must be delivered not with anger or sorrow, for these emotions invite negotiation and signal weakness, but with the serene finality of a falling guillotine. Machiavelli's wisdom here is paramount. Injuries must be inflicted all at once, so that being tasted less, they offend less. This is the core principle of the decisive act. You do not engage in a series of small emotional skirmishes. You do not issue warnings, threats, or ultimatums that bleed the conflict out over weeks or months. That is a poorly used cruelty, a slow poison that embitters everyone and solves nothing. It gives the other party time to marshal their emotional defenses, to rally allies, to paint you as the villain in a prolonged drama. No. The prince acts like a bolt of lightning. The decision once made in the cold sanctum of your mind is executed in a single blinding flash. The injury is delivered in one clean stroke. The bridges are burned, the door is locked, the verdict is rendered. It is total and it is final. This method is paradoxically a form of mercy. The shock is severe, but the pain is finite. By making the action absolute, you remove all hope of appeal, and in doing so, you cauterize the wound and force all parties to begin adapting to the new reality you have just created. There can be no looking back. There is only the stark, unchangeable landscape of your decision. But the strike itself is not the victory. The true mastery is revealed in what comes next. The consolidation of the new order. The amateur believes the battle is over when the enemy is vanquished. The prince knows that this is the precise moment his work truly begins. He does not rest. He does not indulge in relief or remorse. Immediately following the decisive act, you must begin laying the foundations of the new regime. You must establish, through your unwavering conduct, the new laws that will govern your state. If you have removed a person, you immediately fill the vacuum they have left, redistributing their responsibilities, securing their former assets, and demonstrating to all that the state is stronger, not weaker, for their absence. If you have imposed a new rule, you enforce it with absolute consistency from that moment forward, making no exceptions. Your coldness cannot be a momentary tool. It must now become the permanent climate. This is how you build a legacy of iron. After the fire of the decisive act, the iron of the new order is forged and then cooled into a state of unbreakable permanence. Your loved ones, having witnessed your capacity for absolute, dispassionate action, will now operate under a new and profound understanding. They will have seen that your will is the supreme law of your world. The respect they held for you will transform into a form of awe, a deep and abiding recognition that your authority is not negotiable. The new order is not maintained by repeated threats, but by the chilling memory of that one definitive action. You have demonstrated that you are willing to sacrifice a part to save the whole, and that is the ultimate proof of a ruler. You do not merely win an argument or a conflict, you fundamentally restructure your reality. You tear down the rickety structure built on the rotting wood of sentiment and replace it with a fortress of strategic purpose. Your dominion is now secured, not by the fickle bonds of affection, but by the unshakable pillars of respect and fear. We conclude, then, with the ultimate philosophical truth of power. The coldness that Machiavelli champions is not a rejection of humanity, but a deeper understanding of it. It is not the absence of love, but the intelligence to know that love, left unguarded by reason, becomes a fatal vulnerability. The idealist's love is a wildfire, beautiful and passionate, but it consumes everything in its path and ultimately burns itself out, leaving only ash. The prince's love is a fire contained within a hearth of cold stone. The stone gives the fire its shape, its purpose, its endurance. It allows the flame to provide warmth and light safely, without letting it burn down the entire house. The coldness is the structure. The affection is the protected flame within. This is the final paradox. To preserve the things you hold dear in a treacherous world, you must be willing to surround them with the ice of calculated detachment. The ultimate power is not the freedom to act on every emotion, but the discipline to act only on a chosen few. It is the courage to see the world as it is, and the will to impose your design upon it, ensuring order and stability in a universe that trends towards chaos. This is the construction of a throne that outlasts the heart that built it.